So welcome back to Week Talk Boxing. So this is my post-fight review in regards to the fight which took place on the weekend between Terence Crawford versus David Avanesyan. And now before we begin, obviously please subscribe and like and comment for more boxing related content and help us grow this channel even further. So for anyone who's watched this fight, personally I thought it was a good fight between both guys. And as I pointed out in my pre-fight video regarding both guys, that this fight will always be settled. Do you know what I mean? When Terence Crawford wants it to be settled, really, once he pretty much finds his distance and he kind of establishes his jab. You know what I mean? Because again, that's the key for Terence. He's not always the fastest of starters as well. But I felt in this fight, obviously, he started pretty well. Started, on the front foot. Didn't really give Avanesyan much time to breathe, in the earlier rounds. And to be fair, although, this fight did go 6 rounds, it was very competitive between both guys. Do you know what I mean? Crawford, again, as I said in my pre-fight video, he had to kind of remain professional and stay focused throughout the fight because, Avanesyan isn't a light touch. Do you know what I mean? And he made sure that he was prepared. So yeah, I think for me it was a very impressive performance for Crawford really. His close range boxing skills were excellently displayed, and they're out there to show really. And again, and because for me, I feel as if David Avanesyan, his best assets really are coming forward and fighting at close range. And Crawford took that away from him because as Avanesyan was coming forward and at times applying a lot of pressure to Crawford. Do you know what I mean? Crawford just, he was outworking him. Do you know what I mean? At close range, and even when he was getting pressured at the same time as well, he was catching him with some brilliantly landed uppercuts and some sweeping hooks to the body and head as well. And that changing of levels as well, from body to head or head to body was the difference really in the end. And again, the knockout came because, Crawford, he put the pressure on and both guys were throwing at the same time. And obviously Crawford's one landed on the chin, for David Avanesyan, and it was game over really. But yeah, very good fight, very impressive victory for Terence Crawford, and who knows what's next for him really. But yeah, it was a very good fight to watch. Yeah, so pretty much from round one and two, do you know what I mean? They were quite easy rounds to score, really. Crawford won them, blindfolded, really, really. It's quite easy, but for me, what was very impressive, and I said it earlier, was his distance and the jab as well. And what I especially liked was, Crawford, at times he was even, leading with his left hand, followed by his straight right. And this was from the southpaw stance, obviously southpaw, do you know what I mean? Which was very impressive because he just gauged that distance and was able to land those, eye-catching shots, really. But yeah, quite straightforward rounds one and two for Crawford. Round three was a little bit harder to score, but again, I probably would have given it to Crawford just because he threw a little bit more and he was working a little bit harder at the time. But Avanesyan, is a come forward fighter. Do you know what I mean? And he was always throwing and landing some sweeping hooks and overhand rights. You know what I mean? To Crawford, you know what I mean? And it kind of unsettled Crawford's work at times, you know what I mean? Making him look a little bit untidy, but you know what I mean? Crawford, he stuck to his boxing, you know what I mean? And he kept boxing at range when he could. And obviously once Avanesyan was breaking that distance, then, he was trading with him. He stood toe to toe, and he was catching Avanesyan with some good shots on his own, you know what I mean, in round three. So it's, yeah, pretty good round from both guys, really. Round four, for me was the difference. Do you know what I mean? Because at this point, you know what I mean, I felt, that Crawford was, showing his dominance. You know what I mean? He was throwing the better punches and landing with the better shots at the same time. And he was throwing at close range, he was throwing at long range, which was quite good. Um, but Avanesyan, again, as I said, you know what I mean, he's a come forward fighter, so he was applying a little bit of pressure to Crawford, but it just wasn't enough really, and he was prepared, Avanesyan, to take one or two punches to try and land one of his own. but wasn't really successful. And realistically, you know what I mean, I think it was the last 30 seconds, give or take, of the round. You know what I mean, Crawford, you know what I mean, he hurt Avanesyan. You know what I mean, and realistically, if there was more time in that round, then who knows what would have happened really, because he hurt him towards the end of, you know what I mean, the last 30 seconds. And this kind of led up into round 5, where, you know what I mean, Crawford picked up from where he left round 4. He come out, you know what I mean, again, his boxing skills were sensational, and his punch selection was just brilliant to watch really. And he was pretty much just doing what he wanted in there, throwing from all different angles and all different type of punches and that as well, catching Avanesyan on many occasions and hurting him as well. And again, you know what I mean, this continued, you know what I mean, he kept this pressure on, he kept this punch selection going into round 6. Even when, again, Avanesyan was trying to put the pressure on him, and he was landing some good shots at the start of round 6, Avanesyan, but it just wasn't enough, and it kind of made Crawford a little bit angry. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, you know what I mean, Crawford started to sit down on his shots a little bit, and yeah, he was having more of an effect, you know what I mean, on his punches with Avanesyan. Avanesyan was getting hurt a little bit more in this round as well, and as I said, his punch selection and changing of levels was the difference. And again, body, head to body, it was just brilliant to watch really. And this is what pretty much led, you know what I mean, to the knockout in the end, because both guys were standing there. I think Avanesyan threw, I think it was a hook, and obviously Crawford threw a hook, followed by, if he threw a double hook, left and a right, and obviously it was a right that landed, and yeah, game over. Avanesyan was down, he was hurt, he didn't get up, and yeah, required the support from the medics, etc. But good fight to watch. Yeah, brilliant. So finally, you know what I mean, I don't want to kind of long this video out too much. Now, the question I'm asking myself is, where do both guys go from here? Do you know what I mean? So Avanesyan, you know, I'm going to start with him. You know what I mean? I thought he performed well against pretty much arguably the best welterweight, so maybe arguably the best pound for pound fighter at the minute, maybe 1 or 2 right in the rankings, give or take. And I feel that with Avanesyan, you know what I mean, I feel as if he could, you know what I mean, challenge, you know what I mean, other welterweights, and potentially, you know what I mean, cause them a lot of trouble really. Except, you know what I mean, except Spence. He's probably the only one that I don't think he probably cause too much trouble to really. But the others, I feel as if he, you know what I mean, he potentially will have, you know what I mean, have and will be in some good fights, especially against people like Thurman, and maybe even Conor Benn if he comes back. Who knows there? Do you know what I mean? But I feel as well that he will potentially fight again for another world title, but this may have to happen once Spence or Crawford potentially move up to the next weight, because realistically, if he does try and fight one of these guys, he's not really going to be successful really. I just don't feel as if he's got that next level in his chink really. But who knows really. But he's a good fighter, and obviously I feel as if he will be back next year with some good fights. Whereas Crawford, on the other hand, you know what I mean, we all want to pretty much see the Spence fight, but I personally can't see that happening now until potentially maybe the end of 2023 or maybe early 2024, as both guys are pretty much heading in different directions. Spence obviously has had another car crash as well, so I'm kind of unsure exactly where he's going to be in regards to, you know what I mean, did he sustain any injuries and his current status, etc., etc. But I feel as if for Crawford, you know what I mean, he's going to have to potentially try and challenge maybe some of the bigger guys in the next division up to try and be in the bigger fights, because there's not much more left out there in the welterweight division. Obviously, you've got, you know what I mean, the Thurman fight, but I don't feel as if that's a big fight. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's a fairly comfortable test for Crawford. So yeah, for me, I feel as if he has to probably move up and maybe look for one of the bigger guys in the next division up. But anyway, these are my post-fight thoughts. You guys let me know your thoughts. How did you feel this fight went? Do you know what I mean? And who would you like to see Crawford in with next? So as always, please subscribe, like and comment for more boxing related content. Bless.